Good afternoon, everybody. As Rotarians, we are very interested in citizenship and being engaged with the community, civic involvement. And today, it's my honor and it's our great privilege to be able to have two great citizens of our community come up and speak here at our luncheon. That would be Edwin Eisendrath and Secretary of State Jesse White. I'm going to give a brief introduction of each, and then I'll turn it over to Jose, who will be our discussion moderator. So, Edwin Eisendrath. Edwin's a lifelong Chicagoan. He's a self-described creative leader who gets things done. He's an innovator across a variety of sectors, public, private, and independent, and somebody who creates social and economic value within our community. And he's had a very long, distinguished, and diverse career that demonstrates that. Most recently, last year, he led the effort to save the Chicago Sun-Times and really saved it from being purchased by the Tribune Company. And if you think back to what Marshall said about independent journalism, it's so important as a leading city for Chicago to have two daily newspapers and two daily independent newspapers. And so, not only for the value of us as readers, but for us as citizens to have two independent voices as newspapers in Chicago. Leading that effort was very, very important for our community and our city. During the time that he's led the Sun-Times, he led efforts to rebrand the paper, redesign it, restructure the business, improve the financial performance, and invest more in journalism. Very important corporate paper. Prior to taking over the Sun-Times, Edwin spent many years traveling in the Middle East. We heard about work that he did building universities of advanced education in countries in the Middle East. As a managing partner at Stratosphere LLC and as a managing director at Huron Consulting Group, he pioneered the design and implementation of complex and fit-for-purpose public-private partnerships in the areas of education, innovation, and economic transformation. Now, previous to that, he had an important career in public service. He worked as a federal administrative receiver who led the turnaround of several troubled public housing authorities. That includes our own Chicago Housing Authority, the CHA. And he also served as regional administrator for the Department of Housing and Urban Development as an alderman, which is when I first got to know him in the spring of 1987 when I volunteered for his campaign when I lived in Lincoln Park and he represented the 43rd Ward. And he's also served as a teacher in Chicago. So a lifelong Chicagoan and somebody who's had a great dedication to our community and to serving in the public and the private sectors. Secretary White is somebody that we know quite well at the Rotary Club, and somebody who is I think, great friend of our organization. One of our best and most publicized volunteer activities every year is the Jesse White College Trunk Party, helping prepare first-generation college students to be ready to go to college by equipping them with the lifestyle basics at college. He is our 37th Secretary of State. In November of 2014, he was reelected for a record-breaking 5th term, winning in a landslide victory, earning over 2.3 million votes statewide, and that's more than 230,000 votes, more than any other constitutional statewide candidate. He became our longest-serving Secretary of State earlier that year in May of 2014. So, again, it's my real privilege and honor to welcome Edwin Eisendrath and Jesse White to the stage. I'll turn it over to Jose
Good afternoon. Oh, come on now, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, there we go. As my name is David Andrew Sessions, and I'm pastor to the governor for District 6450, and it's my honor to be here with these two giant Chicagoans who've done so much within the city. And today they're going to talk a little bit about some of their experiences over the past few years and really try to tie in Marshall's opening statement about the need for us to be involved in the process. Such a critical thing for us to be taking a look at today. I do have to mention, however, to add to Jesse's bio, that he is the founder of the Jesse White Tumbler team, which, as he just mentioned to me at the table, will be celebrating 60 years in operation in December. So congratulations, Secretary White. So we'd like to open it up to the two of them to say a few words, and then we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. And if you don't have any questions, I can stand up here and ask a whole bunch of questions. So think of some questions you might want to ask. But we'd like to have your input, Secretary White and Edwin, about kind of his current status and the importance of being involved.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for saying. I'd like to share with you a little bit more about my bio. I spent 16 years in the Illinois General Assembly, and Edwin Eisendrath was the alderman when I served. And then I spent 6 years as the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, the second largest recorder of deeds office in the nation. 19 years running the largest Secretary of State office in the nation. 8 years professional baseball with the Chicago Club Organization. 16 years as a teacher. 33 years as a teacher. 10 years in the military. And almost 60 years as coach and founder of the Jesse White Tumbler team, yet about 150 years of age. I believe that when you come through this world and become successful, you give back. I believe that every day you must do something good for someone. I also teach my young people to love their fellow man and woman and never ever dislike anyone because of race, creed, or color. That is the Edwards card today. I cannot play that card and remain a part of my program. I started out back in 1975 as a lawmaker representing the most diverse district in the nation. Lincoln Park, all of the North Streetville, the Gold Coast area, the Mile, Cabrini Green, River North. It was an 83% white district, 12% black, 5% others. And I was elected, re-elected for 16 years. And George Dunn, who was the former president of the Cook County Board, was a person who encouraged me to run and serve in that capacity. And so I believe that when it comes to participating in the election process, if you don't vote, you lose your right. You cannot complain about anything in society. I remind them that the streets that you walk on, the food that you eat, the medicine that you consume, the schools that our kids attend, the buses that they ride on, the buses that you ride on, someone in the government has something to say about the establishment of rules and guidelines pertaining to those entities. So it's important for you to know who they are and come out and discharge your civic responsibilities. In Chicago, we have two sports. We have the political arena, and we have our sports teams. If you want to see baseball, basketball, or soccer game, you buy a ticket. But if you want to participate in the political process, you can register and vote.
Can you hear?
Turn it on.
Let's try that. Is that better?
This should work. Okay. First, thank you for inviting me. Second, thank you for sitting me up here with Jesse White. He is a remarkable citizen. And he said when you make it, you give back. Jesse made it by giving back, and he always has. It was my privilege as a 20-something running for office for the first time as an alderman to have him as the state representative in the area. A model from the very beginning. You can't believe what a great campaigner he is. It still is. But his work never was just about the job. It was always about the community and about everybody in it. That's the kind of thing that makes an enormous difference. And it's the kind of thing, to talk a little bit about journalism, is hard to cover. It's particularly hard to cover in an era where it's all national Donald Trump news get unmoored from reality, unmoored from communities. It's very hard to know what's true and what's not true. Machiavelli wrote, it takes the prince to know the people and the people to know the prince. And that's an entirely political statement. But what he meant was, it's very hard to know anyone in this world. And I've been married to the same woman for a long, long time, and sometimes we misunderstand each other still, right? But you guys are expected to make judgments about what's in the heart of political candidates you only see occasionally on TV. Very hard to do this well. And as you get further and further removed into the craziness around the presidency, it unmoors people from reality. And when we're unmoored from reality and unmoored from facts, we're in a very dangerous place. And so in 2016, we had this election that really was the culmination of a long period of time. When the economy collapsed in 2008, a lot of people got angry, really angry. And, it wasn't like the 1930s when Woody Guthrie ran around everywhere telling people, this land is your land, this land is my land, we're in it together. Or John Steinbeck writes The Grapes of Wrath, and we share a common story. What did we have in 2000? What was our great work of art in 2008? Anybody? Iron Man, rich guy saves the world, right? And people were thrown out of their houses. So people loved the movie, but this disenchantment lasted. And you get 8 more years go by, and people are really upset. And here in the Midwest where we live, people aren't going to believe what's in the New York Times, no matter how great a news organization it is. Nothing from New York or Boston or Washington is going to matter in the Midwest. And I thought, wow, there's a newspaper in my own city that no one ever thought of as elitist. When I was growing up, the Sun-Times was sitting next to every cab driver. It was in every teacher's lounge. It was in when we had lots of factories and all the break rooms. It was a paper that belonged to everybody. It got away from them, and we bought it, and got away from that over the years. But we put together a group to save it and to return it to its roots of a newspaper that has the backs of working women. Chicago is that kind of city. And I was going to show you a video. I just encourage you to go to the Sun-Times website and scroll way down to the bottom, and there's a little thing that says Our Mission. And you should see this video because it talks about why we're doing what we're doing. And saving a newspaper, that's a good thing. But what's really at stake here is the common ground, the fact base upon which we can discuss policy, which we can be the sovereigns in a democracy, which you can't be if you don't agree whether it's raining or not. If you're going to argue about the facts, then you can't argue about policy. Sometimes readership is about 30% African American, about 30% self-described white ethnic working class, and the rest is the rest. This is the only newspaper, news organization in the country that's not preaching to one audience or the other in the politics. Right? Because we've said we're not going to have red glasses or blue glasses. We're going to have the backs of working people glasses. And we endorsed J.D. Pritzker for governor. We also broke the story on the toilets. When 4 years ago, under different ownership, when a reporter reported something unpleasant about Bruce Rauner, he got fired. They were forced to rehire him and quit anyway. It was a different kind of news organization. The credibility of the news matters. Later on, questions I can tell you about the enormous business challenge of trying to save a local news organization. And if you're interested in that, we can talk about that. But just to wrap up this part, our democracy depends on what goes on in our communities. It depends on us sharing some common values and common facts. And the living example of doing stuff in communities is sitting right here. So thank you for having me, and thank you for pairing us.
All right, thank you, Tim. Please give me a hand. So I'd like to kick off for questions. I don't see anybody jumping up just yet. But as you two know, Rotary is a civic organization that's been around for almost 114 years, and it started with this club right here. Technically, I say technically, Rotary is a non-partisan organization, non-political, and also non-religious. However, we know that Rotarians are deeply engaged in all processes throughout the city and throughout the world. So I'd like to ask for both of you, knowing what you know about Rotary and from your own personal backgrounds and understanding, what would you say that we as Rotarians can do to help engage in this process, to help our communities engage in this process, so that we can possibly build a better world?
First of all, every year we have what is called a trunk party, where when young people are graduating from high school, they indicate to us, prove to us that they have graduated from high school. Then they have to prove to us that they've been accepted to a four-year institution. And then they qualify to be part of the trunk party. And I think, this is our fifth year? Yeah. Our fifth year at the Jesse White Community Center, where we will allow these young people to come and receive a computer, a laptop, a tablet, shirts, jackets, shoes, coats, the list goes on and on. So we put these young people in a process by which their parents will just spend their money for scholarship. We will take care of their school supplies. And so we've been quite successful in making sure these young people receive high quality products so that they can function in college. There have been a multitude of other programs that we've been involved in regard to the Rotary. I just want to come in and thank the members for their giving and caring spirit for their commitment to their fellow man and woman. And then Waltz the Wiki is the bunny, whatever the bunny is. You're all over the place, and you're always speaking on behalf of the Rotary Fund. And I want to thank you and Jose and other members of the child who is here for their giving and caring spirit, for their commitment to their fellow man and woman. I believe that when you get it, you can get back. Of course, you know that that's what you've been doing for a long period of time. So I just want to thank you for that.
This will not surprise you. If there's one thing I would love you to do in the community that will help our democracy, help build stronger communities, sponsor subscriptions to the newspaper. Seriously, get people to reconnect with Chicago by seeing local news. If you want, get them reconnected to somebody else's newspaper. But get them connected. It's $7.50 a month digitally. A voter guide alone is worth it. Get people to become locally focused. Build communities locally. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, we don't have to respond to that. I happen to be a subscriber sometimes. I've done that for about 45 years. So my subscription will always be there. And of course, your newspaper is a breath of fresh air. It helps us become better educated, better informed. And I know that you and operating engineer 150 got together to save the paper, and I want to all come in and thank you and operating engineers for making a difference in the lives of all of us.
Thank you. Can I take a moment on that? The group that came together to save the Sun-Times was a really interesting group because it involves organized labor and not pension fund money, but dues. So we have several labor groups, 150 is one, carpenters are another, not in public sector unions, private trades, and wealthy individuals. I am so proud of Chicago that it's the kind of place where businessmen, lawyers, investors, labor can come together to try and build community. That doesn't happen around the country, everywhere. And we did it. And after such a divisive election, I'd like to think that the coming together starts here, and we can be a force for common sense, common ground, and a fight against the kind of polarization that's going on, in part because of the way the internet works, and in part because of the disembodiment of news the way it is.
Are there questions? I can walk around to you with the mic if you have a question or comment for any of either of our speakers. Is there a hand? Okay. I'm going to do a Jesse White impersonation and jump off the stage. There you go. You say name?
Hi, my name is Nita. Thank you for being here today. I just have a question. You're bringing up the concept of communities, and both of your roles are really impactful in creating that environment for that. So with regard to communities, how do you ensure that you're reaching out to the various communities in Chicago? So there are so many in your population, but what we see in the papers or in the media helps to educate other people, but also it gives them that insight into other communities too. So how do you ensure that your reporters or everybody's aware of all the different things going on that they're not part of too?
So, a couple things. When I walked into the Sun-Times, I was stunned. I saw an organization that had no women in leadership anywhere. It had 5 African Americans and none in news-making places. I was appalled. This is Chicago. This is 2017. So we've made enormous change in that regard. By the way, not because I said you have to hire people of color, but because I said to everyone, you have to break your patterns of hiring your friends and find the best people you can find in Chicago. And when I said that, the place filled up with diversity. Turns out when you don't fish in one pond, you just fish for great people, you get them and they come from everywhere. Right? So we have chief operating officers and African American women. There's a woman who leads all of our digital products now. We have people of color in the newsroom and in positions of making decisions about the news for the first time, and I'm not kidding, in 15 years sometimes. Shocking. But it's not enough. So we went and won a grant from something called Report for America. It's an organization modeled on Teach for America. And they're trying to find reporters who will cover neighborhood issues. And we won their first ever grant for 2 reporters who help us cover the west sides and the south sides. It's not enough. We are an enormously challenged business financially, and we haven't talked about that. But in the year of cost cutting and restructuring, I've invested more in journalism so we could cover more of the city in better ways. We can always improve, but that's the direction.
May I respond to that? I run the largest Secretary of State office in the nation. We have 4,000 employees, and we got a $96 million budget, 130 offices, corporate fire security, keep the seal for claims, license plate stickers, state IDs, and this goes on and on. When I came to the Secretary of State's office, it was 20 years ago, we only had a few African Americans, a few Hispanics, a few Arabs, and now when you look at the Secretary of State's office, it looks like America. And that's the way I run my life, and that's the way I think things should be. That we should roll out the red carpet and allow individuals from diverse ethnic backgrounds to participate in our democracy and in the delivery of services to people in the state. By the way, when you come to the Secretary of State's office, you no longer bring your duffel bag, sleeping bag, and your lunch pail. We try to get you in and out of time and then, of course, we want to make sure that our senior citizens, by the way, it passes on to anyone 65 years of age. They're 65 years of age and they want to state ID, it's free. Let me tell you a quick story about that. When I was a state lawmaker in Edwin's district, in this ward, I had a fundraising event at Faces, and I went to the senior citizen building in his ward, and I indicated I was going to have this fundraising event, and I'd like for them to be in attendance. So 60 of the 150 people said, yes, we want a ticket, so I gave them a ticket. They didn't show up. I saw them a few days later, and I said, no, sorry, ladies, you did not attend my fundraising event. Can you elaborate on why you were not in attendance? He says, well, we didn't have $50 to give you, Representative White. I said, well, the ticket I had stamped complimentary, but you didn't have to pay. He said, well, next time it's stamped free. So there's a lot to be said about order.
Thank you both for coming. I am Hervé Jacquiot, and I'm looking at the test of the Rotary Foundation. And the first one is it the truth? And maybe in terms of press, truth is important. And news are only new for a very short time. So how can you be so sure that what you report in the newspaper is the truth compared to what others may be doing?
There are lots of things that news organizations do to assure that their reporting is fair, balanced, accurate, and a true representation of the world we look at. It comes by hiring journalists who are trained, after all, to think that way, to look that way, to look at the facts. It requires having editors who say to the journalists, where do those facts come from? Are you sure? Who are your sources? Are you being used? It comes from protecting all of the journalism from influences like people who come to me and say, hey, I got a great story for you, will you push your editors to do it? And for me to say, no, there's the editor, you can go talk to them. They have their own path. So you have to institutionally protect journalism and all that's there. That said, we also, and this is part of that mission that we have, truth is protected by our common humanity. And when you let ideology get in the way of that, you can do all kinds of things and still get stories terribly wrong. One of the things I like about where we live here in Illinois, in Chicago, traditionally, about politics, the Republicans were pretty moderate and the Democrats were very practical. The hard-edged ideology was on the coasts. And I think it's still true. We here are working people. We get through the cold winter and the hot summer by putting our head down and doing what we have to do, and doing it well. And if we focus on the common humanity of people doing that, it will protect us from the kinds of errors that creep into journalism.
Thank you. I think we might have time for one more President comment. One more question? Okay, let's see back there. Sarah, hold on.
Hello, hi. Thank you for being here this afternoon. My name is Sarah Buck. I'm a professor at Chicago State University. So I teach young adults who don't seem to read much of anything, let alone the newspaper. I feel like most of us in this room probably grew up in households that had newspapers delivered, so we were used to seeing newspapers in hand. So it's different now. They don't get those newspapers in hand quite as much. They read a lot of their information online. So I'm curious as to how we can get young adults more engaged in reading newspapers. And I also see that as part of your financial stability in the future, as those are potentially future subscribers.
First off, I don't care if they read the paper itself. Our digital products are pretty great. Earlier in the year, we ran a campaign on gun violence called 31 Bullets. And it was a campaign that was designed for Instagram. And we had these beautiful posters, these Instagram posts, 31 times. Why did we pick 31? Because that's the number of bullets that are made in America for each American every year. There are 31 bullets for every American in the country made every year. So we did a campaign, 31 things you can do. And it was led by Instagram, but you turn over the Instagram post, and there would be links to articles, links to editorials, links to resources, and direction of actions people could take. And our editorial board did this. And it became very popular among young people. Right? It was a campaign aimed at giving young people the tools they need to take action and to feel empowered by something they cared greatly about in Chicago. What I found that surprised me was that it got picked up a lot by young people in New York. Right? So Instagram goes everywhere. So we are trying lots of strategies to meet interested citizens where they are. And I do not for 1 second believe young people are less interested in the democracy and less interested in our communities than we were when we were young. Their habits are different, and we have to meet them where they are.
Okay, we're about out of time. I'd like to thank Edwin and Secretary White for all of your insights today. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. Secretary White said